you can't fight your urges with willpower all the time, because willpower is a finite resource and it does run out. So instead of fighting your urges, what if you learn how to dissolve them? If you don't know me, my name is Krishna. I'm someone who quit his pornography addiction after many, many years of struggling with it. And I teach the lessons that I personally learned along the way. And I make these videos so that you can quit too, and you don't have to suffer as much as I did. So a few years ago, around 2022, 2023, me and my family, we took a trip to Canada, right? We drove a few hours north of us to Canada. And I remember up until this point, I was really, really struggling with porn addiction. I was watching it basically every single day. I was jacking off at least once, twice a day, right? And a few years ago prior to that, a few months ago prior to that, I discovered NoFap, right? So I discovered that concept of not jacking off, taking the cold shower and doing the push-ups and all that stuff. And then as I started making more progress, it got from watching porn multiple times a day to only doing it every 2 weeks, right? And that was after a lot of trial and error, where there were periods where I could only get 3 to 4 days max before I would watch it again. 3 to 4 days max, right? And that happened for a long time, many, many months, where I was doing 3 and 4 days relapse, 3 and 4 days relapse, 3 and 4 days relapse. On that trip to Canada, though, something interesting happened, because there was one specific instance. I was in my hotel, and the rest of my family had to go do something, right? So they all went out, and I just stayed there by myself. Now, naturally, when you're in a hotel by yourself, door's locked, it's nighttime. What are you gonna do, right? Especially if you're 15, 16-year-old me, what are you gonna do? You're gonna jerk off, obviously. You're gonna watch porn, right? Naturally. And so there was one point where I was getting ready. I was loading up all the stuff. I had all the websites open and everything. And then I kind of was just, you know what? I don't really want to do this. And that was the first time where I had the urge, but I didn't necessarily give into it immediately. Right? I kind of paused there for a second, because I remember reading something in this book, The Way of the Superior Man. And actually, let me go and let me read it to you right now. It's chapter 41, right? It says, "Turn your lust into gifts. When a man sees a beautiful woman, it is natural for him to feel energy in his body, which he usually interprets as sexual desire. Rather than dispersing this energy in mental fantasy, a man should learn to circulate his heightened energy. He should breathe fully, circulating the energy fully throughout his body. He should treat his heightened energy as a gift which could heal and rejuvenate his body, and through his service, heal the world." Right? Through these means, his desire is converted into fullness of heart. His lust is converted into service. His desire is not converted by denying sexual attraction, but by enjoying it fully, circulating it through his body without allowing it to stagnate as mental fantasy, and returning it to the world from his heart. Right? Now, that might have been a lot of spiritual mumbo jumbo or whatever the hell, if you want to think about it like that. But let's just think about what he's saying, right? It's not bad that you have the desire necessarily. Right? We all have the desire to watch, well, maybe not to watch porn, but we all have the desire to have sex whenever we see a beautiful woman or something like that, right? It's just that we've conditioned our brain to associate that feeling of wanting to have sex, being horny, with pornography. But the inherent desire of itself is not necessarily evil. It's just a type of energy that you have, right? Same thing with the energy that you get when you're angry, or the energy that you get when you have caffeine, for example. I remember during that trip to Canada, when I was about to do it, I just remembered that chapter that I read. And so instead what I did is I literally just started breathing, right? I know, absurd, right? All I did, to be quite honest, I just breathed. And I decided to almost feel it fully through each breath, if that makes any sense. I was breathing like this. I was like, and with each subsequent breath, I tried to feel it as fully as possible, if that makes any sense. Because when we feel something, and this is something that I'm still learning about, but what I do know is that when we feel something, we should feel it. We should feel it as fully as we possibly can, because if we try and deny those feelings, it's just going to make the feeling stronger, right? It's just going to make the feeling stronger. Because if I tell you, don't think of a pink elephant, you're going to think about the pink elephant, right? You've just thought about the pink elephant as soon as I've said those words. It's like your mind necessarily, it can't comprehend the negative in that aspect. And so if you feel an urge, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling that. It's just a form of energy. And so just because you feel something doesn't mean you need to act on it, right? Because we're not our feelings. And we're not even our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. We are the awareness behind those thoughts, right? Because, and I'll give you just, you might be thinking like, okay, what the frick is this dude talking about? But I'll just give you a few examples based on my personal experience. So meditation is a huge thing, right? Even if you don't necessarily believe in spirituality and stuff like that, it's just like meditation is, generally speaking, it's a net positive, right? Mindfulness meditation, right? The ability to bring back your wandering mind whilst you're sitting down to meditate, right? It's a huge skill. And so there have been times when I've been meditating, and a good way to describe it is my mind was like a TV, right? My mind was like a video playing. Me, not my mind, but me, I go somewhere else, right? Like I leave that vicinity, I go somewhere else. I don't know what I do, right? And then I come back to where I am right now, and the TV channel has changed. The video playing was different. And so that was one of the moments where I realized, wait a minute, I'm not my thoughts. I'm the awareness behind them. Because if we are our thoughts, then if we stopped thinking, then our awareness will go away, right? Our awareness of us being, right? But I want you to think about this. There's probably been times when you've been in basically a flow state, right? A flow state is basically a period where your mind shuts off and you're so deeply focused and so deeply immersed in the task at hand that you kind of almost become one with it, if that makes any sense. I know this might be weird, but just think about it as the sense that you're fully basically locked in, right? How do you know that you're in a flow state? How do you remember the fact that you were in a flow state, right? There have been times when I've been training martial arts, or maybe there's been times when I'm recording videos just like this, where I was in a flow state. How do I remember those times? Well, because I'm not my thoughts, right? Because I wasn't necessarily thinking during those periods. It's really weird, right? It's a very unique experience. But there's been times when I've been training martial arts, for example, like mixed martial arts, where my body almost kind of moved on its own, right? Like I wasn't consciously thinking, do a double leg takedown or do a single leg takedown. I wasn't consciously thinking that. I just did it, right? How do I remember that? Well, because I'm not my thoughts, because I wasn't necessarily thinking any tangible words in my head. So if we aren't our thoughts, then what are we? Well, we're the awareness behind our thoughts. And again, I'll bring it back to this. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you need to act on it, right? Because you aren't your feelings. And so when you observe your urges, when you just let it be, for a second. When you're like, huh, I feel kind of horny right now. That's it. When you observe it like that, it almost dissolves. You know, it's like that's the experience that I had when I first used this technique. The urge almost dispersed itself, if that makes any sense. And so I think that awareness of it is actually stronger than the resistance, right? Because a lot of men, they try and fight the urges that they have. Why don't you try watching them instead, right? At least that's what worked for me. When I instead of fighting them, instead of being like, don't look, this is bad, you shouldn't do this. Just think, interesting. I feel kind of horny right now. That's it. And you just sit and you just watch it, right? And so the moment you get an urge, watch it, right? Watch the sensations, watch the thoughts, watch the tension, the feelings. And I don't want you to necessarily judge them, right? I want you to just observe them without any judgment. Because the observer, in this case, always has the power. And so when you understand that you aren't your thoughts, you're the observer behind them, you're the awareness behind them, and that gives you a lot of power. Use your breathing, right? Like just like how I did, right? Just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Because when you do that, when you feel the air moving in and out of your body, it takes you back to the present moment, right? It takes you back to here and now. When you're back to here and now, the urges can't exactly control you that much. And also, just understand that you were probably trying to escape something half the time, right? You were trying to escape the negative emotions that you had. You were trying to escape the trauma that you had. You're trying to escape depression, anxiety, whatever it is that you're going through, right? Because a lot of the times, again, porn is not necessarily the problem. It's what you're using porn to run away from. That's the problem. And so next time you feel an urge, I don't want you to fight it. I don't want you to be like, no, you can't do this. Stop thinking this way. Stop feeling this way. Just close your eyes and just breathe as deeply as you possibly can. You can say to yourself, I am not this feeling. I am not this desire. I'm not this urge. I'm the awareness behind it. And just do that for 60 seconds, right? Do that for like a minute. And I know, at least for me, I was actually kind of surprised how fast that urge faded away. I heard a bunch of techniques during that time on how to reduce urges or something like that. It was take a cold shower every time you feel an urge. Do 50 push-ups. And it's okay, those can work, but that's also not realistic most of the time. At least for me, it wasn't, right? It just doesn't work. It's not necessarily a reliable method, because what if it's nighttime and you're about to go to bed? You can't just do freaking 50 push-ups, or you can't just go and take a cold shower randomly. Just do that. And I was surprised about how fast the urge faded, at least for me, right? And so if you want me to go deeper into the actual science behind this, if you want the full step-by-step process that I used in order to quit porn, in order to finally manage these urges, how to manage them properly, the step-by-step system that I used, then you can click the link in the description down below. I hope this video helped you, man. Take care.